Did you know the FBI believes there are as many as 25 serial killers active at any given time? However, the Murder Accountability Project believes that number to be closer to 2,000. Welcome. I'm Jay.
I'm T.
We are Fatal Blend.
This is where we talk about two things we absolutely love. A little bit of coffee and a lot of true crime. Specifically, serial killers.
And here we are.
Again.
Our weekly banter. Our weekly talk. Our weekly serial killers.
Yeah.
So, another week, another dollar, another drink.
Yeah.
So what's your drink?
I am drinking today. So I'm switching my lifestyle. I've done this before, but I'm switching my lifestyle to the whole food plant-based. I did this like a couple years ago, and it drastically changed all of my blood work to really good. And then I just it wasn't sustainable at that time for me. So I'm switching back to that because I also felt better. I feel like basically shit almost every day when I eat something. I'm switching it up. So now today I am actually drinking an iced Americano, but I'm using a coconut milk creamer type thing. Now the creamer's not technically whole food plant-based, but it's my go-to right now until I can figure out the next or whatever I want to use for my creamer. So that's what I'm drinking.
Nice. And with this change of life, we just want to also throw out a little bit of shout out to Uncle JD because we have been using recipes that he's been sending over. So
yes.
Super appreciate
It's
that.
not for everyone. I'm not pushing or what. I'm not even going to tell you all where I get my recipes.
Nah.
I'm not pushing it because in our family, I'm the only one eating like this. Basically, I am creating my meals, and then Jay and then our two kids, they can add whatever types of protein like chicken or turkey or whatever that they want. They can eat the cheese. I just don't want to eat it because the cheese actually hurts my stomach. Half and half actually hurts my stomach. I don't like meat. I never really have. My entire life, I've always struggled with it. So this is just the best way for me. But Uncle JD definitely gives me some recipes that we've eaten that are delicious. And that's how it is.
Yeah, and one of our kids, they also do their own type of
Mediterranean.
Mediterranean.
Yep.
So, you got to find out what's best for you and your body and what you can sustain.
Yep.
Just make sure that you're eating healthy so you can stay on this world for a little bit longer.
True. Anyway, so what are you drinking?
I have a iced coffee with 2 pumps hazelnut, 4 pumps sugar-free vanilla, and half and half.
You mean an iced Americano?
Yeah.
But close enough.
Close enough.
And if you don't know the difference between an Americano and a coffee, Americano is made with espresso. So you would basically we'll take a 16 ounce, for instance, because that's what I drink. You would do 3 shots of espresso, water, and then if you're having it iced, you'd have your ice and flavor or whatever. If you're doing an iced coffee or a coffee, it is ground differently. So you take whatever blend of coffee, it is ground differently. It's coarser grind because it's coffee, not espresso. Espresso is ground at a very much finer grind. And you basically fill your cup up with ice and coffee, or I use coffee ice cubes with my iced coffee. You fill it up and then you add your coffee and not your coffee. You add your creamer and your flavor. So really the biggest difference between Americanos and iced coffee is espresso is used, which is a much darker roast, and it's mixed with a bunch of water with just a couple of shots, whereas coffee is brewed all together. The more you know.
And now you know.
We said coffee, a little bit of coffee, and a lot of true crime.
And there's your little bit of coffee.
That's
and
true.
with that being said, speaking of coffee and true crime, actually has nothing to do with it. We are a week and a half post Disney trip.
We are.
And I am still not fully back
recovered.
to normal.
Hey, I'm proud of us though. We came back from Disney and we walked roughly, how many miles did you say?
I think we're anywhere from 30 to 35 total for the 3 days.
Yeah, because we spent 3 days in Disneyland. So we did a lot of walking. We came back.
Maybe even a little bit more.
We came back. We took a couple days to just kind of rest. And then we went right back to going to the gym. So I was actually really proud of us because normally I would use that as an excuse to not go because I absolutely despise working out. But
no, we've definitely been doing good. I'm just
very
dealing
proud.
with a little bit of what I believe is plantar fasciitis. So just trying to rest up. But at the same time, I still want to go to the gym. And one of the things they tell you to do is to do the RICE method, which is rest, ice, compression, elevation. That's how you get rid of plantar fasciitis. And I just ain't got time to rest it.
That's not true because you could rest it while you're sitting at work because at home anyways, because you work from home a couple of days a week, you could rest your foot while
I
you're
do
sitting
rest
at
it
home.
then, but then we go to the gym and I don't want to take time away from the gym.
You could do the machine. You know the machine where you use your arms like instead of your legs?
I already look like a melting ice cream cone. I need to focus on evening that out. All right. If I just focus on upper body,
No,
it'll be
it's
even
not.
worse.
It's not upper body. I mean, yes, it's upper body, but it's a cardio workout.
I thought about trying the rowing machine because I can modify a little bit of how I push with my feet for the rowing machine.
Yes. Trey told me that one that's the arm exercise. He actually had to do that in physical therapy for his shoulder when he was in football. And he said it's a full cardio workout. It's cardio. It's just not, it's so that you don't have to use your legs. They have that one. And then they have the other one that's next to that where you sit on the machine and you put your legs and you use your legs and arms. You should try those or rowing. Trey does rowing once a week. He does treadmill. All the other days he does rowing once a week for a half an hour. It's a full body workout, but you should, or biking, because that's also not going to you put a lot of pressure on your ball of your foot, not your heel.
I thought you were going to say balls.
No.
I was like, yes, biking does put pressure on men's balls, but.
Anyways, so why are you laughing so hard? Whatever. Okay.
I wasn't laughing that hard. It was pretty funny though.
Okay.
Because I know my family and my family will be listening to this, and that's the first thing that popped into their minds. I guarantee it.
Okay.
And how you don't eat meat. Yes, we don't need to talk about that.
This is supposed to be a family-friendly episode or show. Actually, no,
episode.
It's not.
No, it's not. We're talking about serial killers. This is not family-friendly.
No, it's not. It's not.
So as we speak about family-friendly and serial killers, who's our jackass of the day?
All right. So this week we are talking about a man named Patrick Kearney. Now, before we get into it, I want to make a very quick note that this is a pretty grotesque case. It involves necrophilia and mutilation of bodies. So I understand if you don't want to listen to this, no worries. Stop it now. Stop listening, and we'll see you next week. So.
And we will not judge you for that.
If you are down to hear about the man that is called the trash bag killer, we're going to talk about him. Okay.
Yeesh.
Now that we're all here. Okay, so Patrick Kearney, his nickname is the freeway killer or the trash bag killer. He had his number of victims is 35 or more. His dates of murder are 1965 to 1977, so 12 years of killing 35 or more people. The location for this is California. His method of murder was shooting and asphyxiation. And the characteristics of his murders were rape, mutilation, homosexual victims, and necrophilia. Okay.
Necrophilia, it's so out there and wrong. I can never,
everything about this is wrong, but,
right, but
I understand.
I agree, but I
understand.
can never wrap my mind around.
Listen, I can't wrap my mind around 99% of what serial killers do.
So facts.
But necrophilia is definitely like dead bodies. I just don't get it. So
nope.
Here we go. Patrick Kearney was born September 24th, 1939 in East Los Angeles. He is the oldest of 3 boys, and it is reported that he grew up in an actually relatively normal, stable household. Like his family was considered middle class. There was no reports of abuse. There was no reports of any alcoholism. There was no reports of drug use. There was no reports of neglect. However, he was described specifically as a child as a thin and sickly child because he was sick a lot and he was really small. Now, this did lead him to being bullied in school, and he would get beat up and they would call him derogatory names. And I'm not going to say the names, but I'm going to tell you it is names that are oftentimes used against people that are gay. Those are the kind of names he was called. This really, I think, probably had a little bit of an impact on who he was. So by his teen years, he had actually become withdrawn from basically everybody. And at this point, that's when he starts to fantasize about killing his personal enemies, the people who are being mean to him, the people who are making fun of him, the people who are beating him up. And most of the time, his fantasies would end with him skinning his enemies alive. So he's a teenager and he's now fantasizing about killing and skinning his enemies alive.
See, and we all have intrusive thoughts. Don't get me wrong. But
listen.
Two things. One, the degree of what he's going to.
That's
it's a little out there. And then the second one is just, this is why we say we don't let the intrusive thoughts win.
Right.
Like, we think it,
right.
We just don't act on it.
Well, he also developed sexual fantasies specifically around domination at that time. And at the age of 13, he started to engage in bestiality. So he's just kind of all over the place. Now, his father did teach him how to kill pigs that needed to be slaughtered, like how to kill them properly. Now, the way his dad taught him was that you would go to the pig that is set to be slaughtered and you would shoot them behind their ear. Now, first of all, let me just make a side note here. I am not for killing most animals, but I did watch a documentary once that showed a pig farm that was for like big company, that was for a big corporate company. And they take these pigs that are set to be slaughtered and they put them all on like this elevator and they squish them.
Mm-hmm.
And the pigs squeal and it's awful. It's horrific. And I literally have fucking nightmares about it. So I would say shooting a pig in the back of the head is probably a lot more humane than squishing them with a fucking elevator thing. And I do believe, if any of you are pig farmers out there, I do believe that's actually one of the ways they do it. They do tell you to do it because it's quick and easy. I think it's sad, but it is what it is. Kearney actually liked killing the pigs so much that he started to kill pigs that were not meant for slaughter. And he would also, when nobody was around, he would roll around in the pig's intestines as well, because he liked like the blood and the guts of killing these pigs. He joined the Air Force as an adult and he lived in Texas for like a small amount of time, and he actually got married when he was in Texas, but that does end in divorce. And a little while later, he meets a man named David Hill. Hill at the time is also married, but he ends up leaving his wife for Patrick. Now they move back to California together, and Patrick works as an aircraft engineer for Hughes's Aircraft, and David stays home as like a house husband. No shame in that, by the way. No shame in that. Here's why. I'm a housewife. I have 2 kids, but they're adults and I don't have an actual job. This is my job. This is what I do. I do this and I have a different side business that I'm working on, but I genuinely don't have a job. So I stay home.
No, it's good. It's good.
So cool. If you can be a house husband or a housewife, fucking
do it.
It's the best life in the world.
Do it.
Especially because I get to go to Disneyland sometimes too. Anyways, so they actually settle in Redondo Beach, California. And their relationship was actually pretty tumultuous. They were together for about 10 years. And during that time, they fought like all the time. Oftentimes, David Hill, they'd get in a fight and he would leave. And then sometimes he would go back to his hometown for like a couple of nights where like his wife and kids and shit are. Or at least I think that's where they are. Sometimes he would go out and find one night stands. And then sometimes he would just go stay with friends for like the weekend because they would fight. And it happened a lot. And Patrick, when they would get in these fights, he would leave as well. And he would take this time to go out for long drives. And when he was out for long drives, he would pick up other men from bars and he would pick up hitchhikers, which leads us right into his murdering. So majority of Patrick, okay, so here's how we're going to do this one. Because again, there is a lot of people. So I'm going to kind of tell you, he was very patterned with his murders. So majority of his murders happened in exactly the same way. He would pick them up from either a bar or he would pick them up as a hitchhiker. While he's driving, he would drive with his left hand and he would like maintain speed. He wouldn't drive crazy. And then like at some point in the drive, he would shoot the person that he picked up with his right hand in their head while he's driving. And then he would leave them propped up in the car like they're a passenger. And then, he would use a .22 caliber pistol. Now, sometimes What? Why did you look at me like that?
No,
sometimes they were distracted. Like he would wait till they were distracted. There was a couple people that would be asleep and he would shoot them. But most of them, he would shoot them as they're driving. Then he would leave them propped up in their seat, like as if they were a passenger. He would bring them to some secluded area. He would then perform acts of necrophilia. And if you don't know what necrophilia is, it's sexual acts on a person who is deceased. Then he would cut up the bodies. And then sometimes he would bring them home and cut up dismember them. And then other times he would dismember them in the location. When he was at home, he would dismember them in his bathtub. And then he would also wash all the parts of the body and drain all the blood from them because he didn't want them to smell. That was what he said.
And with the pig stuff, that's what
you would do, right? So that's what he did. Now I'm going to go through the people that he murdered. There's a little snippet of information for some of them. There's no information for others. So I'm just going to kind of go through it and we'll just whatever. So his very first murder that is known was in spring of 1962. And it was an unnamed man who was 19 that he picked up outside of Indio, California. Then in 1962 later, he also found another unnamed man who was 16. This man was the younger cousin of his first victim. And he said it's because he saw this younger cousin saw Patrick drive away on his motorcycle with the 19-year-old. So he basically went back, got that guy, killed him too. Then there was also a man named Mike who was 18. So then in 1965, there was another unnamed man. We don't know the age or anything like that. Then in December of 1967 or 1968, there's 2 years. I want to push more towards 1967 because like most of the things I looked at said 1967, but there was a couple that said 1968. There's a man named George. He was from Culver City, California. And this murder happened in Patrick's home. He was taken from San Diego. And as soon as he stepped into Patrick's home, he was shot in the head. Patrick picked him up in San Diego, brought him into his home. He walks in the home, shoots him in the head. He drags him to the bathroom. He sodomizes the body, skins the body, dismembers the body. He also takes the bullet out from his head, the bullet that he shot him with, so that there was no evidence of of the gun that was used. He then buries the body behind the garage, his garage at his home. Then on January 21st, 1971, John Demchick, who was 13, was killed. On September 22nd, 1973, James Barwick, age 17, was murdered. August 24th, 1974, Ronald Dean Smith Jr., who was 5, in Lenox, California. His body wasn't discovered until October 12th of 1974, so like 2 months later almost. And his cause of death was suffocation, so he wasn't shot. And I didn't find any reports of any sexual abuse or anything like that. I don't know. April 13th, 1975, Albert Riviera is 21. Now, at this point, this is about the time when the police go, I think we might have a serial killer. I think we might have a serial killer on our hands.
And what number are we at?
9, 8 or 9.
Yep, I would say we do.
Yeah. Well, actually, I guess, yeah, that's right. 8 or 9. Yeah, 8 or 9. Okay. So of course, police are starting to be like, okay, something's not quite right here. So then on November 10th, 1975, Larry Gene Walters, who was 20. Then on March 3rd, 1976, Kenneth Eugene Buchanan was 17. March 21st, 1976, Oliver Peter Molitor was 13. April 19th, 1976, Larry Armendariz was 15. So if you notice, these aren't like every couple of months because again, he literally went out and did this when he fought with his boyfriend. So
every time he was mad, instead of taking it out on the boyfriend, he went out and did this.
The boyfriend would leave.
Yeah.
So David Hill would leave and then he would leave. So that's why they're so sporadically dated. I mean, it's like in my mind, very much serial killer because he wasn't like going out every day finding somebody to kill. He was going out when he was by himself, mad at his boyfriend. His boyfriend left. They got into a fight. He's out now. So now he's looking for like a hitchhiker. He's looking for some guy that he picks up in a bar and he kills him and then performs necrophilic acts on him and then disposes of the body before the boyfriend comes back. So that's why there's month gaps in between all this. On June 16th, 1976, Michael Craig McGee is 13 and he is in Redondo Beach, California, which is where they live, by the way. Patrick claims that he picked up Michael while he was hitchhiking and he actually invites Michael on a camping trip. and he kind of like befriends him. But he ends up shooting and killing Michael because he says Michael was a threat to him. Now, Michael had been known to have some run-ins with the law and had been to juvie, and probably it's very plausible that he was hitchhiking. But Michael was in Patrick's home hanging out, and Michael asks him about burglar alarms in Patrick's home. He's like asking like, oh, like, do you have burglar alarms? Or if maybe he saw them, he's like, well, what are these for type thing? So this leads him to shoot and kill him because he's like, I can't trust him. He's going to steal from me or whatever.
He knows about my
whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, my alarm system.
So Patrick's only response, because, after he gets, spoiler alert, he gets captured, after he gets caught, they talk about, he's talking about stuff, and they talk to him about Michael Craig McGee, and his only response to them is, I disposed of the body. You aren't going to find him.
Deal.
Yeah. So there's that. Then on June 20th, 1976, John Woods is 23. He is killed. August 23rd, 1976, Larry Epsey is 17. August 28th, 1976, Wilfred Lawrence Faherty is 20. August 1976 is Randall Lawrence Moore. Now in the fall of 1976, there's two. Robert Bennyfield is 17 and David Allen is 27. October of 1976, Mark Andrew Orak, he's 20. November 1976, Timothy B. Ingham is 19. January 23rd, 1977, Nicholas Nicky Hernandez Jimenez. They don't have an age for him. February 1977, Arturo Ramos Marquez. He's 24. March 13th, 1977, John Otis LeMay is 17. At this point, police have established a pattern. They've started to establish a pattern. So it took all these fucking people, for them to be like,
finally figure out a pattern.
There's a pattern here.
But now also let's look at the date, right? No offense, but it's not like they had computers or stuff like where it makes it a lot easier now to figure that stuff out.
100%. So they finally have established a pattern. Now, what had happened with John Otis LeMay is he actually showed up at Patrick and David's house in Redondo Beach looking for David because David and John had met at the gym. And David was like, hey, come on over. Like, you're cool. Let's hang out. Which I'm not trying to be an asshole, but he's a 17-year-old kid. And I don't really know how old, I think David was like only a couple years younger than Patrick. But at this point, 1977, if Patrick was born in 1939, and this is 1977, how old is he?
39 to 77 was 38.
Okay, so why are 30-year-olds hanging out with a 17-year-old anyways? David didn't kill him. I'm not saying that, but David, why are you inviting a 17-year-old back to your fucking home anyways?
It's a great question.
You shouldn't be hanging out with a 17-year-old kid from the gym. But I digress. Anyways, David's not home. So John shows up, knocks on the door, says he's looking for David. David's not home. So Patrick's like, come on in. You can sit here and wait for him. He'll be back in a little bit. So they start watching TV and like hanging out. But eventually Patrick ends up just shooting and killing John. He dismembers his body, puts him in trash bags, dumps him in the desert. Then on April 6th, 1977, Merle Hondo Chance, who's 8, from Venice, is in Venice, California. Apparently, he was riding his bike in the vicinity of Patrick's work. Now, Patrick claims to have smothered him, took the body home, and then the next day he disposed of the body in the Angeles National Forest off Angeles Crest Highway. And his remains were found May 26th of 1977, so like a month later. And again, I don't understand the children. There's a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a couple of 13-year-olds. And I noticed like with the 13-year-olds, the 5-year-old, the 8-year-old, I don't think he shoots any of them. All of them are like, he like suffocates them. And I'm not understanding why. I'm not understanding if he's just fucking crazy. I mean, he's
fucking
killer,
crazy. So yeah.
I just don't know like that. That's one thing that when they talk about establishing a pattern, where do the kids fit into the pattern? Because his pattern was not children. So I don't understand that at all.
It's almost like he had two different patterns.
It's really
because he's got the kids and then he's got the I wouldn't call them all adults, but older.
Yeah, older
individuals.
Teens.
Yeah.
That's the last of his murders because he gets caught.
Good.
So in March...
That was loud. I apologize for the people that are listening. I got a little excited.
So March of 1977. This is when the disappearance of John Otis LeMay raises red flags. So again, he still murders one more person after this, but John Otis LeMay is the reason he gets caught. So friends and family of John knew that he was meeting up with someone named David Hill in Redondo Beach. Okay. So he literally tells them like, hey, I'm going to go meet this guy. I met him at the gym. His name's David Hill. I'm going to his house. Well, when he doesn't come home, they start to be like, something's not right.
Hold up.
So they talk to the police. They explain to the police like, hey, he said he was going to somebody named David that lives in Redondo Beach. And they're like, okay, yeah, we can work with that. So they start looking around Redondo Beach. They find a David Hill. Boom. They show up to the house. So they do go talk to Patrick and David. Nothing suspicious comes out of it. And while they're in there, like David in particular, I don't even think David even knew that John ever came over because he wasn't home when this happened. So it's like they're talking to Patrick, they're talking to David. And I'm sure David was probably like, oh yeah, I know who the kid is. I told him to come over, but I haven't seen him at all. And Patrick's like, yeah, nobody's come here. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, while they're there, because they're very much like very interested, they see like there's like a kind of like a unique carpet in their house. And so they're like, you know what? While we're here, do you mind if we just take some samples of your carpet? Some carpet fiber. And they said, yeah.
He's like, how about over there?
No, they were like, yeah, sure. Go for it. Like, take it. They take those, they leave. Well, 4 days later, the body of John is found. And now the police are very interested in Patrick and David again, because at this point they find this body and they see that there are some carpet fibers on the body that match the carpet fibers from Patrick and David's house. They go back and they're like, hey guys, remember us? And, Patrick and David are like, yeah, what's up? And they're like, so, we found this body and unfortunately John LeMay has passed. But we would like to know if you'd be willing to give us samples of your pubic hair, both you and David. And can we take some hairs from your dog?
Haha, and this was back before manscaping, so gotcha.
And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. So they give out their samples. They take some samples from the dog. All of the fibers, all of the hairs matched evidence that was left on John LeMay. Okay, so now they've got David, which also is weird that they have David's pubic hair. I'm not going to lie, but I don't know. I don't know how that got there. I'm not even... Patrick's pubic hair, the dog hairs are there, the fibers from the carpet, David's pubic hair. It all matches little pieces of hair and fiber that was left on John LeMay. So police go back to their house, obviously, to arrest them. And lo and behold, those motherfuckers left.
Ooh.
They fucking left. And they fled.
Were like, here's a pubie and I'm out.
They left to Texas. I've never understood that. This is not the only case where they've asked for like DNA or something and then
they don't keep an eye on them.
Yeah. And then it's like, if you think this person could be it, like fucking watch them. Cause like the minute they give you that sample, they're fucking out if they know they did it. Anyways. So they actually flee to Texas so they go to Texas, they get a search warrant. They're like, okay, well, they're gone. So that's fucking cool. But let's just search the home anyways and see if there's anything else we can find that might like solidify these are the people. While they're in the home, they find a hacksaw with a fresh blade on it. Mm-hmm. But in the corners of the saw, because, well, you've used a hacksaw, you can replace the blade, right?
Sure.
So in the corners, there's like some blood and like bits of shit, right? And they scrape all that out and they find out that that in the corners was actually blood and tissue from John LeMay. It matched John. Now there was also residual blood all over the bathroom, but you couldn't see it. So, you do like the luminol, black light, blah, blah, blah. And I guess it was very, very evident that there had been blood in that bathroom.
And I don't know when luminol and black light and all that stuff happened, but, looking back in the day, like, I mean, I guess we're in the 70s.
Yep.
Black lights were probably a big thing.
They were totally a big thing. And then they also found a nylon filament tape that they had found that matched. I don't even know. I think it was probably the plastic bags that were taped up, but whatever. So they do that. Then they also get a warrant to search Patrick's office. And when they go to the office, they actually find the exact trash bags that were used in up to 20 other murders. So they go into his office, and they're like, what's up? They see these trash bags. They realize they are the exact same ones that had been used in over 20 bodies that had been dismembered that they had found knowing this is a serial killer.
Right.
So at this point, the family and friends of Patrick and David are like urging them to come back to California and turn themselves in. I imagine that this probably conversation was kind of like, hey guys, if you're innocent, come back, turn yourself in, and we'll get this all straightened out. Because I'm sure David's like, I didn't fucking do anything.
Right.
And I'm sure he believes Patrick didn't do anything because this is somebody he's been with for 10 years and Patrick has never harmed him. They just get in fights.
And Patrick's probably like, look, they're going to look at us for XYZ. We need to get out of here.
Yeah. And so
even if we didn't do it,
Yeah. Yes. And so that, but the family is like, no, come back home, blah, blah, blah. So finally on July 1st of 1977, so a couple months later, Patrick and David walk into the Riverside County Sheriff's Office at 1:30 p.m. They point to a wanted poster of them and said, we're them. And they are immediately booked on suspicion of 2 murders, and they are wanted for questioning in 6 others.
Interesting. I wonder what brought them to that decision.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming the family urging them to come back. And I'm sure David probably was like, listen, we didn't do anything. Like, I don't want to we can't just hide forever. We can't be running forever. We can't try to escape this for the rest of our life. We'll always be running. So I'm sure that that's probably what pushed him to go back. Anyway, so as they're discussing and talking and questioning and interviewing, Patrick Kearney is very cooperative actually with the police. And he says that the murders excited him and gave him the feeling of dominance. Now, they did ask him if he had rammed anything. Okay. I apologize very deeply, but there's a very serious, there's a fucking reason why I'm bringing this part up. I promise. They asked him a bunch of questions, but one that really stood out was they had asked him if he had rammed anything other than his penis into the anus for sheer pleasure. And he was actually very offended by that question. And the reason he was offended is because these were actually the crimes of a man named Randy Kraft, who was also a serial killer at the time. So they were trying to see if he was the same guy.
So 2 serial killers trying to get him for both.
Yes.
But he's like, I didn't
do that. I don't do that. David Hill actually ends up getting released from jail because there's no evidence that he's involved at all. Patrick even said that he was never involved and that all of the murders were done while David was gone, which I actually do believe, because again, they were so fucking sporadic. It was every time they'd fight. Kearney, against the advice of his attorneys, actually pleads guilty to 3 counts of murder. And he is sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 7 years. Then he does eventually get charged with 21 more murders. He pleads guilty to them very quickly. And the reason why is because he was trying to avoid the death penalty, because during that time, it was like I think they were getting ready to reinstate the death penalty. And so I think his fear was that, oh shit, if the death penalty's on the table, when I'm, still sitting on trial, they can put me on a death penalty. So he ends up he pleads guilty for those, and he gets 21 life sentences. So he literally basically has 22 life sentences total. The joke was on him though, because when they reinstated the death penalty, they could not give the death penalty to anybody who had committed murders before a certain year. So his shit would have never it wouldn't have qualified for the death penalty, but whatever. So Patrick Kearney right now currently is still serving out his sentence at Mule Creek State Prison. He has tried to get parole 8 times and has been denied all 8 times. Now his next possible parole hearing is in January of 2027. He is 85.
Damn.
Yeah.
But again, parole hearing at 85, damn, you're old. Too bad.
You shouldn't have killed people. You shouldn't have killed people. Here are some shots.
Shots. Everybody.
According to Patrick, he learned how to commit these murders because he was reading stories about Dean Carrill, who actually was another serial killer who murdered 17 young boys in Texas, and he would wrap them in trash bags and bury them. Now, he read every story about Dean. He collected news articles and kept them on his wall. As a matter of fact, after the police showed up the first time, he actually fucking burned all the shit that he had of Dean Carrill, because he was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, of course he's going to. Just like we need to take your pubic hair. We'll be back in a little while. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah. So that's supposedly where he says he learned how to murder. Now, most of Patrick's victims were blonde and, by his definition, arrogant, because they were reminders to him of his bullies, is what he says. Now, he would often dispose or bury the bodies in trash bags. So most of his victims, he would dismember them, put them into garbage bags, and then dispose of them in places or bury them in places. Now, he does admit to liking to use the desert for his disposal because, and I quote, "Things disappear very rapidly in the desert. You can put a small animal on an anthill and it disappears right in front of your eyes." That's literally what he said.
Wow.
Like verbatim. Now he did
Interesting, man.
He did have 2 close calls with the law while he was on his murdering years of murder. So one of them was he was actually on his way to dump body parts in the desert and he got a flat tire. And the spare was also flat. So he had to call it tow truck.
If you're dumping bodies, man, you gotta do a once over on your car before you take off.
Yeah. So he calls a tow truck, and the tow truck driver shows up and changes the tire. But the whole time, there is literally body parts wrapped in garbage bags in his backseat.
Man, how would you like to be that person to find out,
that
and you're just like,
you're like, ah, fuck.
Dang it.
Then the second time, he actually locked his keys in his car because he got out of his car because he was scoping new places to dump bodies. Okay. So right now he's got this body, or at this time he has a body parts in his car, and he's driving around trying to find a place, and he gets out to check out a place. Well, when he goes back, he left his keys in his car. And so he was like, fuck. So he had to break into his own car, and he was worried that like, oh shit, if anybody sees me trying to break into my car, I'm fucked because I have these body parts in the back of my car. He did confess to 32 murders, but it is actually believed that there are way more than that, because just because he admits to the 32 doesn't mean that there's a bunch. Because I mean, again, he was literally murdering hitchhikers, people who might not be missed as much as like somebody who was at a bar.
But I mean, at the same time, you know, if he's going to confess, he's got all these life sentences. If he's going to confess and he has all these life sentences, why would you just not confess to everything? Because you're already screwed. Unless some of these murders were after that date and he was like, I ain't talking about that shit.
Well, no, it's true. It's true because he was only charged with 21 or 22 murders.
Right.
And he has actually admitted to 35.
Right. So like why? So I get where they say there could be more, but at the same time, why?
Yeah. No,
why,
I get it.
Why would he just not be like, meh, yeah, got me?
Sometimes I wonder though if that's the game they play, because I do know that there are other serial killers out there don't actually admit to killing until they find the body, and then they're like, oh yeah, wait, hold on, that's
yeah, I did that one.
You know, so there's definitely times where they won't like give you the information, but if you came forward with like a body or an idea, if you came forward and said, we found this person, we think you had something to do with it, he'd be like, well, yeah, I guess that's one too. So I just, sometimes it's like they don't want to tell. It's like a game. It's a game to them. It's like they're kind of like dangling that carrot in front of your face, basically. Now, the Los Angeles Police Sergeant Al Sett, who was like doing the investigation, did say that if he had not gotten sloppy consciously or unconsciously, they're not sure. But I think when they say sloppy, I think they're literally talking about the fact that he killed somebody who came to his house looking for his boyfriend. Yeah. Like if he would not have killed that kid, he probably would still be doing it today. Like
thank goodness for mistakes.
Because had he not killed somebody who came here, like, because normally again he would bring him to their home, but like after he's picked him up from somewhere else, and he's not going to kill somebody who goes into his home and like is friends with them.
Well, and it makes you really think, if he didn't make that mistake and he didn't catch him, this person had no plans on like they weren't going to stop.
No, and
they were doing it a lot. So it's like, what would that number be?
Oh my God.
It would be crazy.
It would be. I mean, I would assume that as DNA got better, they would have obviously caught him, because if he was engaging in necrophilia.
Sure. But by that time,
I mean, that's like the 2000s, right? So when it really started to get good. Yeah. No, 100%.
And with somebody like this, with a number as high as it was, it was fast.
Yeah. Here's what really fucking blew my mind. Okay. So during the time of his killings, there were also multiple other serial killers in California at the same time.
Which is crazy. Which is crazy.
There was like William Bonin, who's the freeway killer who we've already talked about. There was Randy Kraft, who's the one that I was talking about. He's called the scorecard killer. He's also considered the freeway killer, and he's also considered the Southern California strangler. And that's the one that they had asked him. Now, I'm obviously someday we'll do these people, but my knowledge of the Randy Kraft thing is I did see that basically he was taking like wooden stakes and like sodomizing people or something. It's something like that, which is why they asked him, have you ever shoved anything in an anus other than
right?
Him? And then there was also the Hillside Stranglers at the time. Okay, so you have these people, plus this guy, the trash bag killer, right?
So basically what we're saying is California in the 70s, yeesh.
Oh, no, it gets better. So during the 70s and the 80s, there were at least 20 serial killers active in California.
The best sound I can make for that is, damn!
Well, I'm... Because one of the things they talked about was when they came up with like, oh, we have a serial killer, it wasn't like, oh, fuck, we have a serial killer. It was like, okay, wait, is this another? Yeah, is this another one? Or is this just one of our serial killers changing their fucking MO?
Right, and I'm not making excuses or anything, but...
It was the time.
And not even that. That could have been what made it difficult for the police to catch him because there were so many serial killers. Is it this person? Is it that person? When they get into the interview, they're asking questions like, please just answer yes to some of these and we can knock it off the list. And that's crazy.
Okay, so here's the craziest part.
Ooh, it gets crazier.
They had at least 5 of the serial killers. 5, or what did it say? 5 to 8 of the serial killers in a 5-mile radius. Like, how do you decipher who's what?
See,
and also a fucking 5-mile radius? Like, god damn.
Now they would have been caught because they probably would have been on a Facebook group.
But I'm just saying, like all I think about, first of all, I was born in 81. Okay, so I was not, whatever. But my parents, I grew up in California. I lived in California.
So they made it through. So be lucky you're alive.
I'm genuinely sitting here thinking in the 70s. So 77, 76, 75, whatever. My parents were living at the height of this time. And the crazy thing is that we did not live in Los Angeles, but we lived in the vicinity, right? So we lived in Southern California. These people, definitely my parents would know. My dad in particular, I'm thinking it was in the 80s because I was living in California when I was a kid. My dad would work really early in the morning. He'd have to drive to work at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And there was the Night Stalker who was a serial killer. And my dad got pulled over by the cops. And the first thing they did was asked him to open his mouth so they could see his teeth because the Night Stalker had a specific identity of teeth. But that will tell you California has been dealing with fucking serial killers for a very long time. And you figure if they had over 20 active serial killers between the 70s and 80s, that includes the Night Stalker, you would think, they started to learn, right? So by the time it got to the Night Stalker, it was like, well, anybody who's driving early in the morning, late at night, we're going to pull him over. And if it's a guy, we want to see his mouth, period. We don't give a shit what he looks like. We don't care if he matches the description. We want to see his teeth.
Let me see your teeth.
Because he had very specific, gangly teeth. And so it's crazy because I always feel like Washington has a lot of serial killers, but I've come to realize I don't think that they have a lot of serial killers. We just have we have people who are born here that become serial killers. But I was fucking blown away to hear that there was over 20 active serial killers within like a 10-year period. How as police officers do you navigate?
Yeah. And that many in a 5-mile
radius.
Crazy.
I mean, for real, like,
crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, so that just tells me that as we go through our serial killer list, we're going to find some that are located in very similar areas and in California and same time frame. You have any thoughts?
I mean, this goes back into the 70s. I think there was a lot of freedom happening during that time and might contribute to why there were so many serial killers. But
what do you mean? Freedom?
It's just the way the world was. People were out just hanging out, doing stuff. Like, I think with the media and social media and everything else, like when there's a bad thing that happens, it gets blasted all over the place.
Okay.
And I think, because as you're talking about the story, it's like, oh, he saw this kid riding his bike. And it was just like, man, if there was, 9 people dead in my neighborhood or even in the city that I live in, my kids ain't riding their bike. But people might not have known. Like, how much was this being spread out? to have 5 serial
Well,
killers,
I was just
or
going
to
to
have
say,
5 to
you
8
cause
serial
massive
killers.
panic if you start talking about every fucking serial killer. And how do you tell the public? What are you watching for? Like, one is, okay, so one is targeting homosexuals. One might be targeting children. One might be targeting women. Well, you're going to cause mass panic if you're like, basically everybody stay inside and lock your doors. Like, that's obviously, you can't do that either. So I get that.
I mean, yeah, I get that. But at the same time, like, you got to tell them something so your kid ain't riding down the street and gets snatched up.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
That's just my thought on it.
I don't really have any final thoughts, because to me, this Patrick Kearney is kind of like the epitome of a serial killer in my mind. He doesn't have, the only part of it that's not a pattern of a serial killer is the fact that he had like a regular, like, normal childhood.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only part of it. But
just goes to tell you, be nice to everybody.
I say he has a normal childhood, but being bullied is not a normal childhood. I do firmly believe that if you are bullied enough, you absolutely can turn into somebody who wants to kill people. I 100% believe that, especially if you're bullied like your entire life. Like, no matter what your upbringing is, people have the opportunity to make choices. But what I like about him as a serial killer, which sounds very weird when I just said that, but he doesn't have that, I have a mental health, I have schizophrenia, I have, bipolar disorder, or I have, multiple personalities, or he doesn't have like something to fall back on to be like, I have this reason why I do this. Literally for him, it's, I was bullied and I fucking started to,
it is what it is.
I started to fantasize killing my bullies because I don't, and again, and according to him, he picked up people who reminded him of his bullies. So that would make sense. It's like they were like the stand-in for his bullies. I get it. But
I guess that's where the kids, when he was picking up the younger kids, because he was flashing back to,
I don't know,
when he was
man.
picked on that much younger. I don't know.
That's the only thing that throws like a wrench in my thought process is serial killers typically have a type of person.
Right.
Age, sex, look, race, sexual orientation. They specifically typically have somebody that they go for, and those kids don't fit that pattern. But he is more of a typical serial killer in my brain, of the fact that like he killed over a long period of time. He killed multiple people. He killed them all the same way. He calculated it, and what caught him was when he fucking stopped.
Because he did it out of...
He did
it was spur of the moment.
But it was a spur kill. It was a spur of the moment killing instead of something that he had planned on doing. And again, like we said, most of these killings happened when he was in a fight with his boyfriend. So that could be it too. I mean, maybe he was killing people because he didn't want to kill his boyfriend and he was pissed. Like, I don't know. He is the kind of killer that we can't give a reason, but he's the kind of killer that you'd want to sit down and talk to and just be like, but why?
Right.
And I'm sure he'd probably look at you and be like, I don't know. I fucking hate people.
Yeah, he might look at you and be like, yeah, you tell me.
Yeah,
why?
He might not know. And then my response to that would be like, I fucking hate people too, but I don't kill them. So what makes us different? Like, I want to know what makes us different.
I've heard some accounts for some of these serial killers, they want to know why.
Yeah.
Right? They're just like, I know that I'm different and I know that I can't stop this. I can't tell you why. You have the capability of not acting on your internal thoughts.
Right.
I don't.
Well, and that's the thing about serial killers that I appreciate the most, is that most of them are willing to talk. They're willing to talk. Sometimes it's because they want to be gloating about the shit they did. Very rarely are they doing it because they fucking feel bad.
Right.
But they are willing to talk, which is how you learn. This is why we've learned so much that we have over the years, is there were so many serial killers back in the day. Like you had said in a previous episode, probably because there wasn't DNA and electronics and technology that would quickly stop somebody from killing rapidly. But we learn so much from them. We learn about, this is why they've been able to come up with like some of the similarities between multiple serial killers is abusive childhood or torturing animals or arson. That's where they come up with these. But he wasn't any of those, which is why it fascinates me a lot, because he had a family structure. And according to him and everybody else, including his family and his brothers, the family was normal. Like, it was a normal, stable childhood. So to know that somebody was able to have a normal, stable childhood, because we like to blame everything on childhood, this can't be blamed on his upbringing. Maybe it could be blamed on bullying, but it can't be blamed on his upbringing.
Right.
So it's very interesting. I liked doing the research on him a lot. So
well, and again, we talk about it being harder for serial killers now, that seems to be a lot more back then, but that phrase in the beginning of our podcast that talks about how many serial killers, that's not back then. That's
no,
now.
It's not. But the thing is, I do wonder if we'll get to a point where there just won't be serial killers because, well, okay, no, that's wrong. Because here's the thing. If with all the technology, especially DNA evidence, if you are anybody that has a typical serial killer background where you have already had a run-in with the law once or twice, you should be caught relatively quickly.
Not even that. Anybody who's done 23andMe,
any
who's
DNA
done
testing, because they use those.
Even if it wasn't you,
no,
but
right,
a family member
the
did
familiar
it.
matches.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. So I wonder if there's going to come a point where when somebody is murdered because of a serial or somebody who's going to start to be a serial killer, if we'll be able to put a stop to serial killers before they get
I would say
out.
Let's hope so. But at the same time, people get murdered and people don't get caught.
Yeah.
So
well, and
the
here
people who don't get caught murder again, well, they're going to become a serial killer. At that
I
point.
was just going to say, that's the other thing is the definition of a serial killer is somebody who's murdered 2 or more people with a cooling off period. So if you are a serial killer, you kill somebody and then you wait a couple months and kill somebody else in a different manner.
And it seems like
it's just going to be a single murder.
The trend now is just how many you can get in one big spree.
Yeah, killing sprees are definitely more relevant now than a serial killer. But I would venture to guess there's a shit ton of serial killers out there. They're just becoming smarter on evading. Because at the end of the day, a serial killer is not... Most serial killers are not out there just like spur of the moment killing people because they just feel like it. Most of the time, serial killers are planning. They can be organized. They can be disorganized, but they are planning and they are trying to make sure they don't get caught. They're feeding whatever it is that makes them want to kill.
Right.
And they're not just like waking up one day and walking outside and be like, I'm going to kill that guy. It's normally a little more prep than that. So maybe they're just getting better at hiding it. I don't know. But regardless, even if serial killers stop, we have a fucking shit ton to talk about from the 1800s to the early fucking 2000s. So
we got stuff to talk about.
We do.
All right. I think we've hit everything we need to hit.
Yeah.
So, as usual, please follow us on all of our socials.
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook.
All the info is in our show notes. So you can see all that.
Feel free. DM us. Send us something. Talk to us. We'll talk. We like it.
Yep. If you don't want to DM and you have Facebook, you can go onto our Facebook group, which is Fatal Blend Podcast, and we'll accept you. It's invite only. So, or whatever, you have to like click that you want to be added. We'll add you. And in there, we can have active conversations if you want about cases, nothing to do with true crime. We can talk about life. Doesn't matter. Just a little Facebook forum where we can all get together and hang out. So that's
with that being said, I think we need to say
goodbye.
Bye-bye.